how are your cities doing coming out of COVID-19? I guess the rental assistance is gonna, expire this month. So I guess kind of heading into the end of the year and into next year, are they recovering nicely, or kind of do you see, problems?
No, definitely a lot of problems. I think, like I said, my communities depend on the small businesses. So we're trying to make the small businesses, whole again, either through legislation, through assistance for them. And I think the number one priority is to get everybody back to work after the moratorium ends. I hope not, but I believe that there's going to be an influx of folks losing their homes, their apartments. And I think the way we can head that off is by making sure that everybody's back at work. Right. And so there is that, folks are trying to do the right thing, right, and make sure that we're open for business. But I think a lot of our community members, and I'm going to say it, believe that they have this idea about the vaccine, for whatever reason, that they're not going to take it. So I think the challenge is for us right now is making sure everybody's vaccinated, so that the local eateries are comfortable opening, because you don't want to infect everybody. But again, we have different challenges. I represent a community that's more moderate. And so I hear a lot of the rhetoric. And, just to be honest with you, it's not even the more red cities in my area that have that belief about the COVID and about the vaccine. Some of my local communities, mainly, and it's interesting to me, mainly a lot of the older Latino women are like, no, they tell me that they, the misinformation is being passed along. So one lady said, she said that, that she's not taking the vaccine because there's a tracker in it. And so I instead of, I was baffled, right? But I said, with respect, in Spanish, I said, if they're tracking you, like, what did you do that you're afraid of being tracked? Right. And she was like, obviously no answer, because they're listening to this rhetoric. And I said, and if they tracked you, what would you be doing? I said, because they can track me, and I can tell you, I go to work, I pick up the kids from school, drop the kids off at school, go to work, pick them up, go to, to do my jobs. I said, so if they tracked me, they would track me, back and forth from home to work. And so I don't know, what we're afraid of about being tracked, because our cell phones track us 100% of the time. Right. So she didn't quite understand that it's interesting. There's two mind frames, right? So she's talking about the being tracked. And when I was trying to be logical about the fear of being tracked, she didn't really have an answer. And then, so of course I stopped. And then, throughout my conversations with other community members, some of that information comes up, and I have to be really honest with you. I said, okay, you guys complain about the state being dysfunctional and that we can't get anything right. We can't, we had so many issues with EDD and the DMV. Do you think we're really going to open a department that's going to house all of these people that are tracking us? For what? I said, you already say we're incompetent. There's no way in hell that we're going to be able to track this many people. So, at this point, people have already made up their mind, and I can, try to use logic as much as possible, but it's still, one part of the brain that is not connecting with the other. They believe the rhetoric, but when we try to talk about, practical things like, why would they track us? Why would folks track us, and what would they get out of it? And, for what reason? There's no answer. So they get offended, and they just stop the conversation. And so it's really that conversation as well. So when we go back to talking about how we reopen and how our businesses are doing, some of them are opening and some of them are, not, they're afraid. And so until we can get into a pattern of, really getting folks back to work, then we can make those businesses whole. Once the revenue starts coming in, then, our cities are going to start doing better, because I told you I have a majority of small businesses in my area. Well, with 11 cities, guess what they depend on? They depend on that revenue from those small businesses. So the longer they stay shut down, the longer that they're not going to be made whole. I mean, we can sit and talk about this for hours and hours and hours, but I do have to say, and I know it's not, people are going to talk about personal freedoms, but I was in San Francisco, by the way, on my spare time, because, I have nothing else to do. I completed the San Francisco half marathon a couple weeks ago. So thank you. I have to do something for my sanity. which I thought was really insane that I'm using a 13.1 mile walk to be, keep my sanity. But that's a whole other conversation. But when I was in San Francisco, I was not able to go to any of the eateries or any places in San Francisco without showing my vaccine card, which I thought, wow, this is cool, because we're not infringing upon anybody's rights if that's what they're saying. But you can't just go out to eat then if you don't have your vaccine. So those are choices that folks need to make. And at some point they need to make them. But I really appreciated San Francisco because they did not let me into an eatery unless I showed them my vaccine card. And, if you want to go out to eat, you want to go to a bar, you want to go somewhere, if you want your life to return, then you show your vaccine card. If you don't, then you stay home, not vaccinated. I don't know what answer we can give to folks, but it's really hurting our businesses by, having the stance for and against the vaccine. I think, if we all do the right thing for ourselves, look, if I don't want to do the vaccine, and I know that's not what we were going to talk about, but if I don't want to take the vaccine, that's fine. But I have two children. I have a 14-year-old and a 13-year-old. If anything happened to me, I would not be able to forgive myself, because, we're hearing about tragedies all over where children are being left orphaned because both parents are passed. Again, if you don't care about yourself, don't get the vaccine. But the consequences are, if something happens to you, you're leaving your children orphaned. And I would not do that to my children. No. And so I chose to vaccinate, to do that. Again, I know this is not what we're talking about, but I think it's important to have that conversation because it affects our businesses. I can't open my businesses fully because we have these breakout cases. We have these, little pockets of the COVID popping up because we're not doing what we're asked to do because for whatever reason. Yeah. Anyway.
No, that's well said. And kind of talking with some people in the business community, they're part of this kind of anti-vaccine, or they're worried about these mandates. And I kind of, go back to them as you put, is what's best for your business is for it to be open, and for it to be open, and people have to get these vaccines, and we have to, empty these hospitals out. So, definitely well put.
Right. Well, and then, if I can add a little bit, I've got family members in Kansas. Yes, I have family in Kansas. And, we're in conversations. I lost an uncle to COVID in Texas in last October. And just last week, 3 of my family members, actually 5, 3, my aunt, my niece, and a cousin are hospitalized because they were not vaccinating. And then some of the kids around the family members were sick. Now, they were not hospitalized, but they were home, not in school. They're home. And one of my cousins is a nurse, and she's kind of trying to hold the whole family, part of the family in Kansas, together. And she's devastated. She says, how can I, make our family members understand that this is terrible? And so, as you can imagine, in Kansas, the conversation is very different. And some of them are Democrats. The majority of my family members are Democrats. So it's not even, a Republican versus Democrat. It's about the information that's being spread through the news media, through the news outlets. I don't know how they depend on Facebook and all of the social media outlets to get their information. But, I talked to my brother and I said, where are you getting your information from? And he says, oh, well, the news is saying it, the neighbors. And I said, have you talked to a doctor? And he was like, no. And I said, well, when you talk to a doctor, call me back and then we can have this conversation, because, the news media is biased one way or the other. I, can't get into that. But unless we do the research and talk to actual doctors, and the doctors tell you don't do it, then we can have that conversation. But I guarantee you that if everybody listening that is anti the vaccine, goes talk to an actual medical doctor, they'll tell you the truth. I engage on social media because I have to, but I don't get my news from social media. I don't get, I talked to my doctor when I went to get vaccinated. I was like, what do you think? They're like, absolutely, get vaccinated. And again, if you're not doing it for yourself, do it for your children, because if something happens to you, you're going to leave kids that are orphaned. Okay. Sorry, I had to add that because, if anybody's listening and thinks that I'm not going through anything, trust me, my family members are going through it right now. And of course, now that they're in the hospital, they're like, oh my God, I should have gotten vaccinated. Right. Well, by then it's too late. So don't let it be too late. Take care of your children. by taking care of yourself.
Hi, and welcome to Sacktown Talks. Thank you so much for watching our content. If you like it, make sure to hit that like button, and please make sure to subscribe.